On this Spotlight segment, I'm very excited to welcome Jim Roche, the founder of WarrCloud. Jim and I had a chance to work together more than 10 years ago back at Cox Automotive, and Automotive Ventures had an opportunity to be Jim's first institutional investor at WarrCloud. Jim's going to share a little bit with us today about where he is along his entrepreneurial path with WarrCloud and share a bit about how he's worked closely with the Automotive Ventures team to really accelerate growth. So with that, let's welcome to the Spotlight segment, Jim Roche. Well, Jim, it's great to catch up. Thanks for making time today, and I really look forward to our conversation.
Thanks, Steve. It's great to see you, and yeah, it's always great to have a conversation with you. Let's get busy.
All right. Well, Jim, you are a fixed ops expert, whether you like it or not. I mean, having literally written the book on this area of the automotive industry. So, but tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you originally got into the auto industry.
Yeah, I've kind of always had a dual love of cars and technology. Technology going back to, I remember when I fell in love with it was when I saw my first episode of Star Trek, which really dates me. And I came of age in that time when it was all about, particularly for boys, cars. So I got my first car was a '69 Olds Delta 88, and I did everything to it. But that was a sign of those times, back in the mid '70s in particular. And then fast forward, when I was coming out of school, there was a guy who had come to St. Louis and was interviewing for jobs for a company called Tricom. And it turns out what Tricom did, they had a computerized service dispatching system. Now, this was pre-internet. This was even pre-PC. We interviewed, and for whatever reason, he liked me. So I began my first, let's call it, real job. And what I did is I parachuted into a car dealership on a Sunday night, and I unpacked the computer and all the hardware. I assembled it, then I installed it, and then I would interview the service manager, the service advisors, and the techs, and everybody at the dealership having to do with fixed ops, program the system, and then they would go live with dispatching work. And I would monitor, train everybody, teach them how to read the reports, and then on Friday night, I'd grab my bag and run out the door. And I did that for a couple of years, and that was just a great way to learn the fixed ops business from lots of different perspectives, lots of different brands, lots of different styles, and also how to apply technology to it. So yeah, it was quite, and just fell in love with dealer people. You'd come into town, you're a stranger, and you know how it is. They just want to, I'm going to show you around. There's my favorite restaurant. Here's my favorite bar. It was just, it was wonderful, and I was hooked.
That's great. So you decided to stay in fixed ops. So what has kept you interested, intrigued, energized by fixed ops as opposed to straying into other areas of the industry?
Yeah, great question. I think the first thing was it was obvious to me early on that the key to customer loyalty was service. I mean, it seems to be, sort of accepted wisdom nowadays, but not back in the 80s. I don't even think in the 90s or into the early 2000s. But it was clear to me that that's how you built a long-term relationship with the customer, and that was really how to create the foundation for a really, really robust business. I guess secondarily, in addition to the people, there was that in looking at all areas of dealership operations back then, it was my view that fixed operations was the most complex at the time. And I liked the complexity. I liked the puzzle. And that was probably the most underserved area of the dealership in terms of technology and automation. So the challenge of doing that in all of its aspects and complexities was also really, really compelling to me. So yeah, I think that was a little bit of a long route, but I think that kind of was what the original fall in love was all about.
Very cool. Very cool. So let's switch gears a little bit before we dig into WarrCloud specifically. This isn't your first rodeo now as an entrepreneur. So obviously you gravitate towards entrepreneurship. When did you know that this path of entrepreneurship was right for you?
You know, my grandfather owned his own business, so I had a front row seat. Now it was a tavern, so that might have been something there. But I had a front row seat to how somebody owned and operated their own business from since when I can remember. Um, but what's really great about uh, driving a business is that every day you can shape the direction of the business and your impact on the customers, and every day you get to see the results of what you're doing, good or bad. And I really like that. I've worked for a while in much larger companies, as have you. And that's great in a different way, but in a huge company, it's really hard to see where you fit in or where you have an impact. And the results are up to so many different people, and there are so many different variables that the outcome is always, to me, just super uncertain. So I just like the size, I like the energy. I after the first one, it was successful, so I figured, all right, well, that must be the right indicator. And the first one sort of feeds the ones that come after that.
That's great, great perspective. So let's talk a little bit about WarrCloud. So you're in the midst of building a very impressive business that's really taking off. As you reflect back, any aha moments that have really struck you?
Yeah, there were quite a few. In no particular order. I think the first aha. So the idea was, in gestating in 2013, 2014. We incorporated WarrCloud in 2015, and maybe this was the first aha. In my first book, I wrote that I, sort of back of the napkin figured that I visited probably 2,000 dealerships over the years. And if you open enough doors, eventually you find some little closet with stacks of paper going up to the ceiling. Well, that's the warranty administrator's office. And it was a astute service leader friend who said to me, dummy, that's not a stack of paper, that's a stack of uncashed checks.
Mm.
And I kind of went, oh, okay. Because as an entrepreneur, sort of the catalyst for me, Steve, has always been just to find a problem that needs to be solved and see if we can apply technology to it. But then, as we developed WarrCloud, I began looking at the trend lines for a warranty, and I noticed from 2015 through 2019 that warranty grew. This is for dealers in the U.S. across all brands, about 38.3% in that time period, which is just huge growth. Customer pay was growing at a fraction of that. It turns out that was because of this path of autonomy that we're walking down and the technology that's going into cars. So that was an aha moment. Okay, this is becoming increasingly important. I guess the last aha is we came to market in late 2020. And if you're going, well, wait, 2015 to 2020, yeah, it took us that long to build it because it's really, really complicated. But we went to market. When I say we, I meant I literally called some dealer friends and said, hey, we've got this piece of technology. And they said, sure, Jim, we'll try, whatever you've got. And just through word of mouth, I mean, I wasn't even doing it full time. By the middle of 2021, we had 40 paying dealers. So that was one of those, maybe this is one of those right idea at the right time ideas.
That's great. Awesome insight. Awesome insights. They say that success in life is sometimes due to the people that you surround yourself with. How do you think of mentor and support groups, and like who has been the most influential mentor in your life, and what have you learned from them?
Yeah, you never get there on your own, although not everybody admits that. I've been fortunate to have many throughout the years, yourself included, and thank you. But I've had to pick one. I'd pick Les Silver. I've known Les for over 30 years, and you were nice enough to say that I'm an expert on fixed ops, but Les is really the guy that wrote the book. He's taught me so many things. I've worked directly with Les twice. He's now an advisor to WarrCloud. But I think the fundamental thing that I got from Les, well, let me tell you a story. So my first company was a company called Tricom, as I mentioned, and they sold computerized dispatching systems. And at one point, they franchised that idea around the world. Well, the guy who had the franchise in Canada was a guy by the name of Les Silver. Now, we were selling Tricom computer dispatching systems in the US for, if memory serves, $22,000. Came to find out that Les Silver was selling them in Canada for over $50,000. And his business was growing like crazy. Well, in talking to Les, he said, you've got to realize that the computer is just a tool, no different from a hammer or a screwdriver. But if you're not teaching them how to use it, and in a high turnover business like service, providing remedial teaching and showing them how to improve and best practices and providing consultative services, it'll go nowhere. And that idea of how to build that value in a business has really stuck with me over the years. There's literally dozens of other examples, but I think that's the fundamental one.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding. Yeah, and he is one of a kind. There's no doubt. We know him well as well.
No doubt.
Yeah. What's the best advice you've ever received as an entrepreneur?
Oh boy. Well, you know what? I mean, so going back to Les, guess maybe that's not a surprise. Les has something he calls his 6-pack for success. And these are 6 sayings that he has been literally telling everybody he works with for decades. One of them is really the one that resonates for me. Les says, you always have to ask yourself, would you rather be right or successful? And I have found that to be invaluable advice in professional and in personal life. Now, all of us would always like to be both, right? But it really, when you have to pick, is when the fundamental question comes. And it never ceases to amaze me how many people don't pick success, deliberately. But for me, I like being able to identify those situations and pick success.
That's great. Great advice in life and in work. So let's talk about WarrCloud for a minute. So you've achieved some impressive milestones over the last 2 years. Tell us the milestones that you'd really like to expose to the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 2 years ago, as I mentioned earlier, we weren't even in the market. There wasn't a dealer who was using WarrCloud. No dealer had ever heard of WarrCloud. And this month we'll pass 200. In 2022, so far, we have sold 150 dealers. So 200 is an important milestone, and the pace with which we have got there is, I think, pretty remarkable for a company that's so new to the industry. So that's really important. Our team passed 50 people a few months ago, so I don't know that that's necessarily important, but that signals a stability and a heft to the organization. I think moves us past sort of the tiny startup stage. And this month we'll pass, a 5 million ARR, which is nice, especially considering where we were, 9 or 10 months ago. So no one is more important than the other. I'm really looking forward to passing 250 dealers. And for me, the milestones after that, based on my past experience with other companies, is 500 is an important milestone, and 1,000. Now, I get that they're also very round numbers, but you're a very different kind of company when you hit those sizes. And luckily, I've had some experience with doing that, so kind of looking forward to it.
That's great. Well, congratulations to you and the team. You're doing an outstanding job, and we're very proud. So Jim, you've raised a bunch of money in the past over various businesses. Help the audience understand a little bit about what you've learned, and specifically any surprises or interesting stories around raising capital.
How much time do we have? I think that in looking back, particularly in the last 3 years, I think the surprise to me I guess the biggest surprise is once you get past a couple of simple key metrics, what's your revenue run rate, or what's your margin look like. Everybody gets interested in something different. There is something that captures them, and the variability. I had thought that it would be the same. You could pick 12 things, it would be the same 9, and it's not at all. Some people fall in love with the technology. Some people fall in love with your approach to market. Some people fall in love with the team. It's just the surprise to me is how different it always is. I think that's the I guess the one interesting story would be in one of my recent fundraisings. Was talking to a gentleman, very successful, very sophisticated, and we had gone through a couple of discussions about WarrCloud, and he said, I get it. And this is a person, I should add, that knows automotive. He said, I get it. You know what you do? Plumbing. And I said, well, thanks. That's not the sexy description that we're looking for, but to some degree, yeah, warranty claims processing is plumbing. And he said, no, don't take it the wrong way. I get it. If you're the only plumber in the country, you can make a lot of money. And he wound up investing with us. So, that was there was a little bit of a lesson in that for me. It's not always the sexiest story that gets it. Sometimes it's just solving a problem.
Yep, a big problem that everybody has. That's
everybody
great.
has, exactly.
Well, Jim, Automotive Ventures is very proud to have been your first institutional investor. Let me ask you, how did you first hear about Automotive Ventures?
Yeah, you and I used to work together at Cox. I think we met a couple times. I can't say that we knew each other, but sort of two mutual acquaintances almost simultaneously said, are you talking to Steve Greenfield? God, you got to talk to Steve Greenfield. And that was Tony Remus at Repairify, and Paul Whitworth, who was an exec at Cox Automotive. And you and I just sort of clicked right away. And it's been a great relationship since then. But it really was just having an established network, and people who connect the right people. My experience with Automotive Ventures, I don't want to make this sound like a commercial for Automotive Ventures, but it's been fantastic. And I think primarily because I'm a bit of a car guy, and I think you guys are car guys. It's not that you don't come from fundamentally a banking or a financial background. You come from the industry. You have a very detailed knowledge of all aspects of the automotive ecosystem. And that resonates with me. And that also is very helpful to me as an entrepreneur, because, you need to find ways to help and move up the ladder in every way that you can. So overall, I think, the experience has been excellent. You guys are smart, you're helpful, and you're always available. I wasn't you necessarily, but going back to the first company I was involved with that was a VC-backed company and was successful. The first investor that was in that said something to us. They said, you will find that when times are good, we're a good partner, and when times are hard, we're a great partner. And I've never forgotten that. And that's always what I look for. Times haven't been that hard for WarrCloud, knock on wood, but I know that you're the kind of organization that is always there.
Well, thanks, Jim. And the feeling is absolutely mutual. We really appreciate you and the team, and have loved being on this journey along with you.
Thank you.
So in that same vein, so we're pleased that many of our dealer LPs, the folks that have invested in the fund, have also elected to co-invest directly into WarrCloud alongside us, and also are now, in some cases, your customers. So, that seems like a virtuous cycle. Tell us a little bit more about that dynamic from your perspective. What's it like to work with investors that also then become customers?
Yeah, it is a virtuous circle, and thank you again for that. Um, it's obviously as in a partnership where it's vendor customer. There's sort of the relationship has a typical profile. Those customers who are also investors, it's very different in many ways. First of all, typically in something like WarrCloud, where we're automating warranty processing. The service leader is kind of the point guy. But when the dealer is an investor, the dealer is also involved, and by the dealer being involved, other leaders in the organization are all also involved, as well as the service leader. You in not just how do we do this month? You get product suggestions, you get referrals from the dealers, you get testimonials, which we're going to be putting out a couple testimonials from some of our dealer customers here over the next month on our website and through social channels. You get introductions to 20 groups, and if they have more than one dealer, eventually you get introduced into those other dealerships. So it works in a lot of different ways, not just as an investment in capital, which is really, really great. And we've had quite a few of our customer relationships have come either directly or indirectly from that, and that's one of the things that's just fueled this phenomenal growth that we've seen.
That's great. Great. Yeah, I love that. The network effects are very powerful. So we've got probably a bunch of entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs out there who have tuned into the segment today. What's your best piece of advice for them if they're early stage entrepreneurs and they're looking to grow their business?
Yeah, gosh, so many things to think of there. I think if I had to give one, I don't remember who it was that said it, but the quote is, "Persistence alone is omnipotent."
Hmm.
And as an entrepreneur, you really have to have persistence. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to stick with it, because there are so many speed bumps along the way. But look for the positive signs amidst all the challenges and difficulties, and also be prepared to pivot. Don't give up, but there is no shame in pivoting. That would be really, that's the one that stands out to me for my personal journey, particularly, is persistence.
Yeah, very, very, very sound advice for all of us. Okay, so before we sign off here, go ahead and make one bold prediction for the future of automotive.
Do we really need any more bold predictions? uh, I don't know how bold these are. I think in the near term, um, the operating a dealership is going to get more difficult. We've come off of a great couple of year run. I mean, historically high levels of profitability, and that's fantastic. But I think we're on the downslope of that. I think we'll wind up selling more new vehicles as the inventory shortage lets up, and we will see margin compression creep back in. I think we'll see the new vehicle sales will make used vehicle sales soften. Um, we've already seen, as a matter of fact, you guys are educated me on this legislation that the FTC is putting forward about F&I rules, 10 to 12 billion cost to dealers over a 10-year period. And service is going to get challenged as well. I mean, electric vehicles have, a much lower percent of moving parts. And as we sell more new vehicles, that's going to put warranty covered vehicles, millions of them more on the road, I think at the expense of vehicles, customer pay vehicles that maybe are coming to the dealership. So you look across the spectrum, and I think that the dealer world is going to be challenged. A couple other predictions, I guess. I think that I get that autonomy is still a wow, here it comes. I think it's going to take a lot longer than anyone thinks it will. We'll get aspects of autonomy, but the hey, I go to my app and my car glides up in front and takes the kids to school. We'll see. And I guess the last one, I don't think this is too bold, Steve, but I mean, I think that dealers are here to stay. You know, a lot of people say that, you know, and this is like the third time we've heard this in my time in the automotive industry, which is kind of funny. We're back to the future, but you know, oh my gosh, the dealers going away. I just don't see, given the transportation ecosystem as it is today and the role that dealers play in it, that they'll change, of course. And one of the wonderful things about this industry is how adaptable, you know, franchise automotive retail is. Dealers have constantly changed over the decades, and I think we'll see change. But dealers going away, yeah, I'm not a believer. I'll place my stack of chips on betting on the dealer.
Yeah, 100% agree with all of the above. Great predictions. Well, Jim, as always, it was a true pleasure catching up today. I always learn something new every time I talk to you. So thank you for imparting your knowledge and wisdom on the industry. And we're just as pleased as we could be being on this journey alongside you, and really appreciate everything that you're doing with WarrCloud for the dealers out there. So thank you for your time. You're very generous, and I look forward to our next conversation together.
Steve, thank you. It was great to spend some time. I don't think I've spent this much time with you since the last NADA. So this was a lot of fun. And look forward to the next time I see you, and good luck with the dealer fund.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it very much.